Okay, here we have another question from the Biology EOC. If you notice, we do have a chart. So like I've asked you before, you're going to cover it up just so you don't get sidetracked or start reading ahead. I'm going to read the question. A student is studying the ecology of a playa lake, which forms after a rainfall in a dry lake bed. The table lists the organisms that the student observed. So, ecology. That's a vocabulary word that is familiar if you take in biology or any of the sciences. And ecology, what that means is a way, or that's like an ecosystem, and it's a study of an ecosystem actually, and that includes the things that are living and things that are non-living. So it includes the animals, it includes the rocks, the sunlight, things of that nature. Now, if you didn't know what a playa lake was, it tells you right after that. Playa lake, which forms after a rainfall in a dry lake bed. Sometimes on the STAR EOC, they'll give you a term that you may not know, and if you read thoroughly, you'll see that it gives you the definition of what it is. The table lists the organisms that the student observed. Remember, a student is studying, so they're making observations, okay? And organisms. Organisms we know are living things. So we know that we're going to see maybe a list or a graph or something because she's looking at living things that she studied in this environment or this ecological system. Okay, so now we're going to look at the table. We haven't even looked at the question yet. We're just going to look at the graph. Organisms observed. So she observed it for 4 days. On day 1, she saw fairy shrimp, clam shrimp, tadpole shrimp. On day 2, you'll notice she observed one more than on day 1. On day 3, she observed 3 less, and on day 4, she didn't observe anything. Notice, I'm just looking at the table and finding similarities and differences. Okay? And anytime you have a table or a chart, whether it's in math or English or any other subject, you should always look and try to find patterns, similarities, differences. So over here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 3 here, you have 1 here, and you have none right there. Okay? So most likely they might ask something about the organisms, maybe how they decreased or something of that nature. Okay, so we haven't looked at the question yet. We're going to look at the question right now. Which biological organization has a student described in the table? Biological. Big word. But you know that biology has to do with living things. And just the way I'm making notes on my paper, that's what you should do too for the questions that you are struggling with on the EOC or any test that you're going to take in high school. Organization. Organization is the way things are structured. And you don't even have to think about how it's structured in life, but if you think about when you go to a grocery store, things are structured a certain way. They're arranged a certain way. Okay, so which level of living things is a structure? Which structure of living things is she looking at in the lake? Biosphere, organelle, ecosystem, community. At first glance, you may not even have a clue of what the answer is. Start looking at the ones you do know. Organelle. You know organelle are things like mitochondria, chloroplast, a vacuole, and those are found in cells. Okay? If you look back at the table, she didn't look at any cells, so we know it's not that one. Ecosystem. Like we said at the very top, it includes the rocks, it includes the air, it includes the animals, and not just animals, but any organism. So, did she include any kind of abiotic or non-living things in her table? No, she did not, so we know it's not that one. The biosphere. Bio means living. Sphere, that's a circle. So it's a living circle. So think of the living circle of the whole world. You're going to think of the atmosphere. You're going to think of the land. You're going to think of the water. The entire earth. Is she mentioning the entire earth in this table? No, she is not. Or he is not. The only answer could be community. That is called using the process of elimination. You went one by one and thought about if it could be that the answer or not. So I didn't know the answer right away, but I went one by one. And see all the notes I made? That's okay for you to do too. Community. Okay? Even if you may not know the definition, you can tell that it makes sense because not talking about biosphere, not talking about organelles, not talking about ecosystem.